Most people want to be respected, understood, and appreciated. They want others to listen to their ideas, cooperate with them, and remember them positively. Yet many conversations produce the opposite result. People criticize too quickly, speak mainly about themselves, argue to prove they are right, and try to force others to change. Dale Carnegie argues that successful human relationships begin with a different approach. Instead of asking how to make people do what you want, begin by understanding what they want, how they see themselves, and what makes them feel important. How to Win Friends and Influence People is not a book about manipulation. Its strongest lessons depend on genuine interest, respect, empathy, and honesty. Carnegie explains that people are rarely moved by criticism alone. They are more likely to cooperate when they feel valued and when an idea connects with their own desires. This applies in business, friendship, family life, leadership, sales, and negotiation. A manager may improve performance by recognizing effort rather than humiliating an employee. A salesperson may earn trust by listening before presenting a product. A friend may strengthen a relationship by remembering another person's interests and concerns. The book is built around several simple principles. Avoid unnecessary criticism, show sincere appreciation, become genuinely interested in others, listen carefully, respect different opinions, admit mistakes, and help people save face. These ideas may appear obvious. The difficulty is applying them when pride, impatience, anger, or competition takes control. Carnegie's central message is that influence begins with human nature. People want dignity. They want to feel that their opinions matter and that their efforts are seen. The person who understands these needs can build stronger relationships without force. Blink 1. Criticism usually creates defensiveness, not change. When someone makes a mistake, criticism feels like the natural response. A manager may believe an employee needs to be corrected sharply. A parent may think blame will teach a child a lesson. A colleague may want to prove that another person handled the situation poorly. Carnegie warns that criticism often fails because people protect their self-image. Even when they are clearly wrong, they may create explanations that make their behavior appear reasonable. A criticized person rarely thinks, "I am the problem." They are more likely to think the critic is unfair, uninformed, or disrespectful. The conversation then becomes a struggle over pride rather than a discussion about improvement. Harsh criticism may produce temporary obedience, especially when one person holds more power, but it also creates resentment. The employee follows the instruction while losing motivation. The child obeys while feeling misunderstood. The colleague becomes less willing to cooperate in the future. Carnegie does not argue that mistakes should be ignored. Problems still need to be addressed. The lesson is to separate correction from condemnation. Instead of attacking someone's character, describe the issue, ask questions, and focus on the next step. A manager might say, "This deadline was missed. What prevented completion? And how can we avoid the same problem next time?" This approach gives the person room to explain and participate in the solution. It protects dignity while still creating accountability. Carnegie encourages people to remember their own failures before judging others. Most behavior makes more sense when the circumstances, fears, and incentives behind it are understood. The first step toward influence is therefore restraint. Before criticizing, ask whether the words will create real improvement or only emotional satisfaction for the person speaking. Blink 2. Sincere appreciation is one of the strongest human motivators. People have a deep desire to feel important. They want their work, character, and contributions to be recognized. Carnegie argues that sincere appreciation can motivate people far more effectively than constant correction. Appreciation is different from flattery. Flattery is often exaggerated, dishonest, and designed to obtain something. Sincere appreciation is based on a real quality or action. It requires paying enough attention to notice what another person has done well. A leader might recognize an employee for remaining calm with a difficult customer. A teacher might praise a student's improvement rather than only the final grade. A friend might express gratitude for years of reliability. Specific appreciation feels more credible than general praise. Saying good work may be pleasant, But saying the way you simplified that explanation helped everyone understand the problem tells the person exactly what was valuable. Recognition also shapes future behavior. When people know what they did well, they are more likely to repeat it. Many individuals receive criticism immediately, but appreciation rarely. Their strengths become invisible because others begin treating them as normal. Carnegie encourages people to look actively for qualities worth recognizing. This does not mean ignoring weak performance or praising everything. False compliments quickly lose value. The point is to become less focused on what is missing and more aware of genuine effort and ability. Appreciation should not be saved only for formal occasions. A short message, a direct thank you, or public acknowledgement can have a lasting effect. People may forget many instructions, but they often remember who made them feel respected. Influence becomes easier when others believe their value is seen rather than taken for granted. Blink 3. Begin with what the other person wants. People naturally think from their own perspective. A company wants more sales. A manager wants better performance. A parent wants a child to behave differently, but the other person is thinking about their own goals, fears, and interests. Carnegie argues that influence begins by connecting your request with what the other person wants. Suppose a business wants customers to buy a service. The weak approach is to speak only about the company's history, features, and needs. The stronger approach is to explain how the service saves time, reduces risk, improves results, or solves a problem the customer already cares about. The same principle applies outside sales. A manager who wants an employee to learn a new skill can explain how it may create greater responsibility and career opportunities. A parent encouraging a child to study can connect the effort with the child's own interests, rather than repeating that studying is important. This does not mean hiding your own goal or manipulating people. It means recognizing that people act for their reasons, not yours. Carnegie recommends developing the ability to see a situation from another person's point of view. Before making a request, ask, what does this person value? What problem are they trying to solve? What fear may be stopping them? How can this proposal help them as well? An idea becomes more persuasive when it feels like a shared benefit rather than a demand. Influence built on mutual interest is also more stable. People cooperate willingly because they see value in the action. They do not need to be pressured continuously. The person who talks only about personal needs may still gain compliance. The person who understands the other side is more likely to gain commitment. Blink 4. Show genuine interest in other people. Many people try to become interesting. They speak about their achievements, knowledge, problems, and experiences in the hope that others will admire them. Carnegie argues that a more reliable path to connection is becoming interested in others. People respond warmly to those who show curiosity about their lives. This may involve asking about work, family, interests, challenges, or recent events, and then listening to the answer. The interest must be genuine. Mechanical questions asked only as a social technique can feel empty. Real interest requires attention and memory. Remembering a person's name, an important project, or a concern mentioned in an earlier conversation shows that the interaction mattered. Carnegie places special importance on names. A person's name is closely connected to identity. Using it naturally can create warmth, while repeatedly forgetting it may suggest that the person was not important enough to remember. Learning names is not a mysterious talent. It comes from concentrating during introductions, repeating the name appropriately, connecting it with a detail, and making an effort to remember. Showing interest also changes the quality of networking. Instead of entering a room asking, "Who can help me?" a person asks, "Who can I learn about, support, or connect with?" This creates relationships rather than transactions. Genuine curiosity makes conversations easier because the speaker does not need to perform constantly. Most people have something they enjoy discussing when they feel another person truly wants to understand. Carnegie's lesson is not that people should hide themselves completely. Healthy relationships involve mutual sharing. But connection often begins when someone feels seen. The easiest way to become welcome in another person's world is to care about what already matters inside it. Blink 5. Be a good listener and encourage others to talk. Listening appears passive, but Carnegie treats it as a powerful social skill. Many people are not truly listening during a conversation. They are preparing their next reply, waiting for a chance to tell a similar story, or deciding whether they agree. The other person can often sense this. Good listening requires attention without immediately redirecting the conversation. Ask questions that allow the person to explain. Avoid interrupting unnecessarily. Respond to what was actually said, rather than using one sentence as an opportunity to return to yourself. People often become more open when they feel heard. A dissatisfied customer may calm down after being allowed to describe the full problem. An employee may reveal the real cause of weak performance when a manager listens without immediate judgment. A friend may not need advice as much as they need space to organize their own thoughts. Listening also provides information. The person who speaks less often learns more about needs, motives, and concerns. This makes later advice or persuasion more relevant. Carnegie advises talking in terms of the other person's interests. If someone cares deeply about gardening, football, business, or art, learning enough to ask thoughtful questions creates a stronger connection than forcing the conversation toward your preferred subject. This does not require pretending to share every interest. Curiosity is enough. Good listeners are often remembered as excellent conversationalists, even when they spoke relatively little. They make people feel intelligent, interesting, and respected. The practical lesson is simple. Do not listen only for your turn to speak. Listen to understand what the person is trying to express and why it matters to them. Blink 6. Avoid arguments and respect different opinions. People often enter arguments believing that victory will change the other person's mind. They present stronger evidence, expose contradictions, and prove that their position is correct. Even when they win logically, they may lose socially. The other person feels embarrassed, attacked, or disrespected, and becomes more committed to the original view. Carnegie argues that the best way to win many arguments is to avoid turning the disagreement into a battle. This does not mean agreeing with everything. It means discussing differences without threatening the other person's dignity. Avoid beginning with statements such as, "You are wrong." Those words immediately create resistance. A better response might be, "I may be missing something, but I see it differently. Could we examine the facts together?" This language leaves room for both sides to think. Carnegie recommends showing respect for opinions even when rejecting the conclusion. A person's belief may come from experience or information that is not yet visible. Questions can reveal those reasons more effectively than direct confrontation. When someone points out a genuine mistake, admit it quickly. Defending an indefensible position damages credibility. A sincere admission often reduces the other person's desire to attack because there is no longer a battle to win. Disagreement can become productive when the goal is understanding rather than victory. Each side may discover missing information or improve the original idea. Some situations still require a firm decision. A leader cannot avoid every conflict, and false claims should not always remain unchallenged. The principle is to remove unnecessary hostility. Changing a mind is easier when the person is invited to reconsider rather than forced to surrender. Blink 7. Begin in a friendly way and look for early agreement. The opening of a difficult conversation often determines everything that follows. If someone begins with accusation, anger, or superiority, the other person prepares to defend themselves. Carnegie recommends beginning in a friendly way. A calm tone and respectful words do not weaken the message. They increase the chance that it will be heard. Suppose a customer has received poor service. An aggressive opening may cause the employee to focus on defending the company. A friendly but clear opening might say, "I have generally had good experiences here, so I hope you can help me solve a problem with this order." The concern remains serious, but the employee is invited to become part of the solution. Carnegie also recommends beginning with areas of agreement. Ask questions that allow both sides to say yes to basic facts or shared goals. A manager and employee may agree that the project matters, that the deadline is important, and that the current process is not working. Once agreement exists, the conversation can move toward possible solutions. This method reduces the feeling that the two people are enemies. They may disagree about the method while still wanting the same outcome. Friendly beginnings are especially important when emotions are already high. The person who controls the opening can influence the entire direction of the exchange. Anger often invites anger. Respect makes respect more possible. Carnegie's approach is not about becoming weak or avoiding the truth. It is about presenting the truth in a form that the other person can accept without first fighting to protect their pride. Blink 8. Let people feel ownership of the idea. People support ideas more strongly when they feel they helped create them. A manager who gives detailed orders may gain compliance, but employees may feel little personal commitment. A leader who asks questions and invites suggestions can produce a stronger sense of ownership. Carnegie recommends allowing the other person to do much of the talking, and where possible, to arrive at the conclusion themselves. Instead of telling an employee exactly how to improve a process, a manager might ask, "Where do you think the delay begins? What change would make the largest difference? What support would help you test it?" The employee may identify the same solution the manager already considered, but because the person participated in creating it, motivation is often higher. The same principle works in sales. A good salesperson asks questions that help customers describe their own needs and recognize the gap between the current situation and the desired result. The customer is not pushed toward a decision. They build the reasoning themselves. Giving ownership does not require pretending that every idea came from someone else. It means resisting the need to receive credit for every useful thought. Leaders often become more effective when they care more about implementation than recognition. Carnegie also advises dramatizing ideas. Facts become more memorable when presented through a vivid example, demonstration, comparison, or story. People may forget abstract instructions but remember a clear picture of the problem and its consequences. Influence increases when others can see the idea, discuss it, and make it partly their own. An imposed conclusion may be followed temporarily. An owned conclusion is more likely to guide future behavior. Blink 9. Correct people without humiliating them. Leadership requires correction. Employees make errors, standards decline, and difficult behavior sometimes needs to change. Carnegie offers several ways to address problems while preserving dignity. Begin with honest praise or recognition. This should not be a false compliment used to hide criticism. It should acknowledge something the person genuinely does well before discussing the issue. Next, call attention to mistakes indirectly when possible. Instead of saying, "You always submit careless work," a manager might say, "This report would become much stronger with one more review of the figures." The focus remains on improvement rather than character. Carnegie also recommends speaking about your own mistakes before criticizing others. A leader might explain that they struggled with the same issue and describe what helped. This reduces the distance between superior and subordinate. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders where appropriate. "Could we organize this section differently?" often creates less resistance than "change this." Most importantly, allow people to save face. Public humiliation creates deep resentment and can damage confidence far beyond the original mistake. Sensitive feedback should usually be given privately. Even when someone must be removed from a role, the process can recognize their positive contributions and avoid unnecessary embarrassment. Carnegie does not suggest lowering standards. Respect and accountability can exist together. People are more willing to improve when correction gives them a path forward. If feedback defines them as incompetent, they may defend themselves or give up. If it presents the problem as specific and correctable, improvement feels possible. A leader's goal should not be to prove superiority. It should be to help another person perform better. Blink 10. Give people a positive reputation to live up to. People often behave in ways that match how they believe others see them. If a manager repeatedly describes an employee as careless, the employee may become discouraged and stop trying to change. If the manager sincerely recognizes the employee as capable and dependable, the person may work harder to protect that reputation. Carnegie recommends giving people a good reputation to live up to. Suppose an employee who normally produces excellent work has recently become inconsistent. Instead of saying, "Your standards have fallen," the manager might say, "You have always been one of the most reliable people on this team, which is why these recent problems surprised me. I know you are capable of correcting them." The message addresses the problem while reminding the person of a stronger identity. Carnegie also advises making faults seem easy to correct. When people believe improvement is impossible, motivation falls. A teacher can tell a struggling student that the difficulty comes from a few specific gaps rather than a complete lack of ability. A manager can break a large performance problem into smaller skills that can be learned. Encouragement gives people energy to continue. This principle must remain sincere. Inventing qualities that do not exist can sound manipulative, but most people possess strengths that can become the foundation for change. Leadership often means seeing those strengths before the person sees them clearly. Carnegie's final message is that influence should help people feel more capable, not smaller. The most powerful leaders do not create cooperation through fear alone. They create an environment where people want to meet higher expectations because those expectations are connected to dignity, trust, and a positive sense of who they can become. Key takeaways from the book. How to Win Friends and Influence People explains how respect, empathy, and genuine interest improve relationships and increase influence. Criticism often produces defensiveness and resentment rather than lasting change. Address problems without attacking a person's character. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Specific recognition helps people feel valued and encourages strong behavior to continue. Influence begins by understanding what the other person wants. Connect requests and ideas with their interests, needs, and goals. Become genuinely interested in other people. Remember names, ask thoughtful questions, and pay attention to what matters to them. Be a good listener. Encourage people to talk about themselves and focus on understanding rather than preparing your next reply. Avoid unnecessary arguments. Respect different opinions, ask questions, and admit mistakes quickly when you are wrong. Begin difficult conversations in a friendly way and identify shared goals before focusing on disagreement. Allow people to participate in creating ideas and solutions. Ownership produces stronger commitment than direct pressure. Correct others without humiliating them. Use private feedback, questions, encouragement, and honest recognition of strengths. Let people save face, especially when addressing mistakes or making difficult decisions. Give people a positive reputation to live up to and make improvement appear achievable. The book's central lesson is that people are more likely to cooperate when they feel respected, appreciated, and understood. Lasting influence does not come from controlling others. It comes from treating them with enough dignity that they willingly choose to work with you.